Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Mrs. Prema Janardhan, Vice Principal, discussing Module 11, Environmental Crime Prevention. Learning objectives: to familiarize the learners with crime prevention through environmental design, to make learners to understand the principles of CPTED, to acquaint the learners with the benefits and practical implications of CPTED. Introduction: the environmental approach seeks to change the specific characteristics of the environment that may cause criminal events to occur. This includes both situational approaches to crime prevention and broader planning initiatives, and aims to reduce crime by designing or modifying the physical environment to reduce the opportunities for crime to occur. For example, such techniques include designing public spaces or housings to make it more difficult for people to break equipment or enter buildings without permission, or making products so that they can be identified if they are stolen. Other examples include the use of closed circuit television to protect car parks, or the development of pedestrian pavements, gardens and seats in a public area to encourage greater public use with increased surveillance of that public space. Crime prevention through environmental design. The term crime prevention through environmental design was originally coined by Dr. C. Ray Jeffrey in his book of the same title nearly 4 decades ago. Further, his concepts was well extended by Oscar Newman, an architect, in 1972 work Defensible Spaces, Crime Prevention through Urban Design. CPTED General Guidelines for Designing Safer Communities defines crime prevention through environmental design. CPTED is the proper design and the effective use of the built environment that leading to a reduction in the incidence and fear of crime and an improvement in the quality of life. CPTED is commonly pronounced as CPTED. Correspondingly, Office of Neighborhood Involvement Crime Prevention Program describes crime prevention through environmental design is the design, maintenance of places and things, and use of the built-in environment in order to enhance quality of life and to reduce both the criminal incidents and fear of crime. An effective design generally targets the location of the criminal activities or the vulnerable places for the crime to occur. Major principles of CPTED. The environments which require CPTED are varied, such as single family homes, multi-family homes, neighborhood, educational centers, commercial complex, shopping malls, office buildings, industries, parking structures, commercial drive-through, ATMs, etc. CPTED involves the balanced application of some major principles discussed below. These principles support the design, construction and utilization processes of an environment to effectively implement CPTED. Natural surveillance. Natural surveillance is a design concept directed primarily at keeping intruders under observation. It utilizes design features to increase the visibility of a property or a building. The proper placement and design of windows, lighting and landscaping increases the ability of those who care to observe intruders as well as regular users, and thus provides the opportunity to challenge inappropriate behavior or report it to the police or the property owner. When natural surveillance is used to its greater advantage, it maximizes the potential to deter crime by making the offender's behavior more easily noticeable to a passing individual police patrol or private security detail. To ensure the natural surveillance, it is unavoidable to improve a good visual connection between residential and or commercial units and public environments such as streets, common areas, parks, sidewalks, parking areas and allies. Place activity rooms such as kitchen, living or family rooms and lobbies to allow good viewing of parking, streets and or common areas. Managers, doormen, attendants and security personnel should have extensive views of these areas. Natural or active access control. It is a design features that clearly indicate public routes and discourages access to private structural elements. These features decrease an opportunity for crime by creating in an offender a perception of unacceptable risk when attempting access to private areas, which mark the stranger as a possible intruder. Thus, This concept directed primarily at decreasing criminal accessibility, especially into areas where a person with criminal intent would not easily be seen by others. Idea: create perception of risk to deny access of likely offenders. The primary thrust of an access control strategy is to deny access to a crime target and to create a perception of risks to offenders. Denial of access to target shall be achieved through creating design features include a highly visible gate placement of entrances and exits to be used by authorized persons, or fencing of discourage unwanted access to private spaces into dark unmonitored areas, landscaping to control trafficking flow and usage doors and window locks, etc. Territorial reinforcement. Territoriality refers to the design of the physical environment to extend a perceived sense of influence or territory. People taking ownership of their surroundings makes it more difficult for offenders to carry out crimes or disorder. In fact, the features of this design clearly indicates public and private structural elements of a property. So, the individuals can develop a sense of territoriality or for a space with frequent activities in an area, a sense of ownership. With this feeling of ownership, an individual is likely to defend his environment. This ownership does not necessarily mean legal ownership, but it is a perceived ownership, such as sense of ownership that employees feel for the office in which they work and students feel for the university where they study. The sense of territory and ownership by an individual is reinforced through regularly scheduled activities, inspections and maintenance. Idea: territorial influence enhances sense of ownership. People take more interest in something they own or when they feel intrinsically involved. Therefore, the environment should be designed to clearly delineate private spaces. Territorial reinforcement helps users to exhibit signs of ownership that send hands-off messages to potential offenders. Thus, the concept of territorial reinforcement suggests that physical design can create or extend a sphere of territorial influence and potential offenders perceive that territorial influence. Ideal CPTED design. The above three principles of natural surveillance, access, control and territoriality can be expressed in a three method such as natural passive manner and organized active manner, a mechanical manner. However, natural passive CPTED design into a space before it is even built is the ideal. The other important principles associated to the CPTED are the maintenance and management activity and target hardening. Idea: maintenance expresses ownership and non-maintenance permits vandalism. Maintenance and management allows for the continued use of a space for its intended purpose. Deterioration and blight indicate less concern and control by the intended users of a site and indicate less ownership involvement, which can result in more vandalism, as known as the broken window theory. If a window is broken and remains unfixed for a length of time, vandals will break more windows. Crime is more prevalent in areas that are not maintained. As a result, law-abiding persons do not feel safe and do not want to frequent those areas. Activity support. Activity support can be achieved by designing a built environment or signage in a way that promotes the intended use of public space through so-called safe activities. The basic assumption of the activity support is that crime can be deterred in spaces where a variety of activities continuously take place and attract people. Both natural surveillance and territoriality can be achieved by promoting more activities in public spaces. Idea: continuous activity discourages likely offenders. Desire activity support involves both passive and active efforts to promote the presence of responsible pedestrian users in a given area, thus increasing the community value of the area while discouraging actions by likely offenders who would desire anonymity for their actions. Target hardening. Target hardening is a process wherein an environment is made into a more difficult or less attractive target. This technique is the opposite of natural, which reflects crime prevention as a byproduct from normal and routine use of an environment. The use of mechanical devices and organized crime prevention strategies make an area harder to access, but may have a tendency to make the inhabitants feel unsafe. Target hardening increases the efforts that offenders must expend in the commission of a crime and is the most long established and traditional approach to crime prevention. Idea: hardening target, lessening crime. It can be seen that target hardening often happens after crime has been committed, but after hardening any target either mechanical devices or through other preventive strategies, the success rate of unauthorized accessing property or completing a crime is declining. Model guidelines for CTPED. The actual implementation of CPTED principles is dependent on the design of the physical space which requires it. Therefore, the implementation of some CPTED principles without consideration for the space and its use may not result in the desired results. Use the illustrative guidelines noted below cautiously and within the perspective of an unified professional design. When considering the design of an area, the present and future uses need to be considered. General stages in CPTED design and planning process. The following is a generic process that reflects pre-application meeting. A pre-application meeting is required to discuss and review the expected land use before the design process begins. Design. This stage is very significant one as it is foundation for any effective CPTED efforts. This design stage has two processes. One is preparing schematic design and developing the design. Schematic design. This is the process of the design presents a list of the requirements regarding the intended use of the property. This document includes the general site organization including the building location, parking location, site entrances and exit and building entrances and exit. The schematic design focuses on the decision regarding access control measures, surveillance opportunities from various locations on and adjacent to the site, design details and policies regarding use. Design development. This process of design lists the size and shape of buildings, parking and other site features. Building structural features defined at this time including plumbing, lighting and communication systems and doors and windows types and locations. Here the concerns of CPTED would have to be as like what are the design's influences with regard to opportunities for crime. Other features that have to be considered are the placements of fences, walls, dampsters, signs and graphics and lighting. Plan submission and plan review. Relevant agencies such as law enforcement, traffic engineer, government approved building engineer or CPTED reviewer, urban development corporation etc. review the plans with respect to compliance of pertinent ordinances or policies and forward the plan for officials approval. Plan approval. Generally, the approval is a permit to proceed with the construction process. This step is very much required for large projects such as construction, documentation. It includes the construction drawings and a manual of materials and product specifications. These documents are used to solicit bids for construction services and building materials and products and to guide the site and the building construction and installation of related materials. Here the CPTED concerns are, this documentation is beneficial in assessing the ability of a site and its building to reduce crime. The specification manual can be useful in identifying problems that could result from the use of certain materials with regard to life expectancy and requirement maintenance. Bidding and negotiating. During bidding and negotiation, the contractors may require material or product substitutions to reduce cost. Here the CPTED concern shall as though the substitutions suggested by contractors appear to be beneficial to the client, but it should not significantly reduce the ability of the resulting environment to reduce crime. Construction. Observation of the construction activities throughout the construction process is vital to the success of the design to ensure that the design is true to the plan and the specified materials are used in the construction process. Site use after construction. The way that the property will be used when it is completed is as vital to the prevention of crime as its design, including the hours of activity and scheduling, assignment of space, property maintenance and disciplinary code for violators. CPTED concerns are the implementation of CPTED principles by property owners, managers and residents is necessary to the deterrence of crime and the sense of safety for the residents. Community benefits of CPTED. There are definite benefits to the utilization of CPTED principles in a community for urban, city corporation or law enforcement and community residents. Largely, community residents are beneficiaries either directly or in other ways. Some of these listed in the Design Safer Communities Handbook are listed below. Benefits to the urban or city corporation: improved perception of safety and livability in public areas and neighborhoods, more revenue from safer and busier business districts, increased use of public parks and recreation facilities by residents. Benefits to the law enforcement: police, increased opportunities to develop crime prevention partnerships with residents, identification of potential crime problems in the community before they become serious, recognition that crime prevention is everyone's responsibility. Benefits to the residents, public, improved sense of security and quality of life through reduced fear of crime, increased interaction among the residents and stronger neighborhood bonds, new crime prevention and problem solving skills, enhanced knowledge of city government agencies and other resources. The implementation of CPTED principles can help support community crime prevention goals. The implementation of the principles when considered early in the design process for a community does not increase the cost of to residents or business owners. The decision process for the review and acceptance of a CPTED project will generally not be lengthened. If CPTED principles conflict with local building and fire codes, then a trained CPTED professional should be consulted to identify suitable alternatives. In some circumstances in different countries, the community design groups have worked to modify the local codes for future projects to incorporate the CPTED principles and further enhance the safety and the use of environments in that community. Practical implications of CPTED. CPTED is an increasingly fashionable approach and is being implemented on a global scale. Additionally, individual components such as territoriality, surveillance, maintenance, access control, activity support and target hardening are being widely deployed. However, the evidence currently available is inconclusive and much criticized, which effectively prevents widespread intervention and investment by the governments. But an environment with CPTED design principles does not guarantee an absence of crime and vandalism. To be effectively and truly implement the CPTED principles, the design factors must be blended with social factors of the environment. Summary. Although the concept CPTED continues to evolve, traditional CPTED can be defined with the following concepts: natural surveillance, territoriality, access, control, activity support, maintenance and management, and target hardening, which were discussed above. The one who influenced by the concept of natural surveillance would have a strong feeling that the safest urban place in one is that continuously watched by human beings. Studies by Newman on American housing projects found that buildings and community designs that encouraged natural surveillance, especially by their own residents, were important for deterring crime. In keeping with CPTED, a place with a close-knit social network can develop voluntary community guardianship. A place that is continuously controlled by its own residents who share a sense of community can be more effective than police enforcement. Territorial attitude could act as an effective deterrent to potential crimes that a semi-public community space surrounded by residential buildings would be important for developing territoriality. Activity support can be achieved by designing a built environment or signage in a way that promotes the intended use of public space through so-called safe activities. The basic assumption of activity support is that crime can be deterred in spaces where a variety of activities continuously take place and attract people. Both natural surveillance and territoriality can be achieved by promoting more activities in public spaces. While effective design is an important part of good crime prevention, following through with consistent maintenance and management practices ensures that the designed-in elements keep their effectiveness. For CPTED principles to accomplish the goals of enhanced livability and better natural safety, each principle must work together with others. Balanced application of CPTED principles is vital by taking into account the nature and dimensions of the specific environment that needs crime prevention. Also, previous experience has shown that CPTED needs to be integrated as part of a broader crime prevention strategy targeting other risk factors and neighborhood problems, which requires community involvement, partnership, and the coordination of activities. CPTED should be focused at both the macro and micro level and should also be applied to both public initiatives and private developments and involve careful management of the relationship between public and private space. Thank you for visiting EPG Pathashala.